When you close your eyes and picture the weaponry featured heavily in America's Wild West, you most likely imagine settlers and their inclination towards guns and artillery. Your mind might harken back to the early days of Smith & Wesson or Samuel Colt, when the widespread manufacturing of firearms spread across the U.S. government and smaller outfits of outlaws and bandits. Despite the generational outburst of better guns and developed artillery, firearms weren't the only options available to the folks traversing the western frontier. Whether they were hunters, soldiers, or both, some of the most fascinating and unique weapon choices came from the warrior bands across hundreds of Native American tribes who utilized a diverse set of weapons for both sourcing their food and defending their homeland. To garner a better understanding of what these types of weapons were and how they were used, let's break down the major groups of arms and protection systems of indigenous Americans. Here are the 5 types of Native American weaponry from the Old West. The first category of weapons often conjured in images of Native Americans on the battlefield is range weaponry. These weapons were further divided into short-range and long-range categories. Bows and arrows are perhaps the most referenced arms. These complex tools have been around for an estimated 8,000 years or longer, with indigenous Americans being major players in the bow and arrow game across the Old West. Arrows were constructed using a stone shaved down to form a sharp blade, also referred to as the arrow tip. The arrow was then fastened to one end of a skinny wooden shaft, while feathers were attached to the opposite end to help shape the arrow's flight path and keep it aerodynamic. Bows were built from wood, shaped and softened for flexibility, and connected with a single taut strand of string. This string, usually made from animal intestines, nettle fibers, bone tissue, or horsehair, was the most vital piece, providing the necessary tension for launching arrows effectively. In addition to bows and arrows, Native Americans utilized spears and lances for both warfare and big game hunting. These were similar to arrows but typically featured longer shafts and sometimes dual-purpose tips for both thrusting and throwing. The use of spear throwers, or atlatls, further enhanced the range and velocity of these projectiles, allowing warriors to strike enemies from a safer distance. The craftsmanship involved in creating these range weapons was a testament to the ingenuity and adaptability of Native American tribes. Different tribes developed variations of these weapons to suit their specific environments and hunting needs. For example, the Plains tribes often used lighter, more flexible bows suited for horseback archery, while woodland tribes crafted sturdier bows for dense forest hunting. The atlatl, an ancient tool, not only increased the force and distance of thrown spears but also demonstrated early forms of mechanical advantage, showcasing an advanced understanding of physics and material science. Opposite of range weaponry is close combat weaponry, often referred to as striking weapons. These were most commonly seen during fights between tribes and amongst fellow indigenous Americans. The most iconic striking weapon was the war hatchet, resembling the axes European colonists brought with them via early colonization. These hatchets were revolutionized versions of ancient grooved axes seen in the area from nearly 10,000 years ago. War hatchets were typically made with a wooden or stone handle topped with a sharp stone blade. In some cases, the blade was constructed with iron, especially after the 19th century when Western migration intensified. Similar to war hatchets, pipe tomahawks hatchets that also functioned as smoking pipes were prevalent. These dual-purpose tools were likely used as short-range weapons and ceremonial objects, symbolizing both warfare and cultural practices. Another common striking weapon was the club. Stone clubs involved heavy or dense stones wrapped tightly to the end of wooden handles, making them formidable in hand-to-hand combat. Wooden clubs, fashioned similarly to their stone counterparts, sometimes featured sharpened ends to serve as effective melee weapons. The gun stock war club, modeled after 18th century muskets, was another unique weapon that combined the intimidation factor of firearms with the functionality of a striking tool. Striking weapons like war hatchets and clubs were not only tools of war but also symbols of status and prowess within tribes. The process of crafting these weapons was often ceremonial, involving rituals that imbued the weapons with spiritual significance. The design and decoration of these weapons could indicate the wearer's rank, achievements, and tribal affiliations. Additionally, the transition from stone to metal components in these weapons reflects the broader technological advancements and interactions with European settlers, highlighting the dynamic nature of indigenous warfare strategies. The most often used cutting weapons among indigenous tribes were knives and other short-bladed tools. Unlike the longer weapons used for hunting and warfare, these cutting tools were versatile and essential for daily survival. Knives were used in the killing of game, preparation of food, skinning animals for meat and fur, and as tools for crafting and building. While a few tribes adapted sword-wielding tactics influenced by European settlers, most preferred shorter blades that were easier to handle and carry. These knives were typically constructed from natural hard materials such as big game bone, deer antlers, or refined stone, tightly woven into wooden handles carved from tree trunks. Some tribes later incorporated iron or steel into their knives, inspired by European metallurgy. Knives served as fundamental tools that bridged the gap between utility and combat. They were indispensable in both survival and warfare, allowing tribes to perform necessary tasks with efficiency. The craftsmanship of these knives varied greatly among tribes, with some developing intricate patterns and decorations that held cultural significance. The transition to metal knives not only improved their durability and effectiveness but also symbolized the adaptability of indigenous peoples in integrating new technologies into their existing cultural frameworks. Switching from the offensive side to the defensive, indigenous tribes utilized various forms of shields to protect themselves from attacks. War shields were primarily used to deflect arrows and other projectiles during battles. These shields were typically constructed with a circular wooden frame covered tightly with tough materials like leather or cowhide. They were often adorned with paint, feathers, and other decorative elements that represented the tribe's identity and spiritual beliefs. War shields were designed to not only protect warriors but also to intimidate opponents with their size and decorative prowess. Some tribes, especially those in the Great Plains, used neck leather from the American buffalo to create more durable and resilient shields. As the buffalo population declined in the late 19th century due to government hunting policies, tribes adapted by using elk and horsehide, though these materials were less durable. In addition to war shields, some tribes used medicine shields, which held symbolic significance rather than providing physical protection. These shields were crafted with intricate designs and symbols that represented the warrior's spiritual journey and protection from the spirits. Medicine shields were often lighter and more ornate, allowing warriors to carry them without hindering their movement. The use of shields among Native American tribes was deeply intertwined with their spiritual and cultural practices. War shields were not just functional tools but also carried spiritual meanings, serving as a connection between the warrior and the spiritual realm. The craftsmanship of these shields often involved elaborate designs that told stories of bravery, protection, and ancestral heritage. Medicine shields, in particular, were seen as conduits for spiritual power, believed to provide warriors with the strength and protection needed to face their adversaries. These practices highlight the holistic approach indigenous peoples took towards warfare, blending physical defense with spiritual fortification. In addition to the primary categories of weapons, some Native American tribes developed specialized tools for specific purposes, such as fishing and hunting marine life. Harpoons and nets were essential for tribes living along the coastlines and relying heavily on marine resources. These weapons allowed them to efficiently catch fish, seals, and other marine mammals, ensuring a steady food supply in nutrient-poor environments. Harpoons were crafted with barbed tips to secure their catch, while nets were made from strong fibers that could withstand the force of the water and the struggle of large marine animals. These specialized tools demonstrated the ingenuity and adaptability of indigenous tribes in utilizing their environment to its fullest potential. The development of specialized weapons like harpoons and nets underscored the importance of marine resources to certain tribes. Coastal tribes, in particular, relied on these tools not only for sustenance but also for trade and cultural exchange. The construction and use of these weapons required advanced knowledge of marine ecosystems and the behavior of marine animals, highlighting the deep connection indigenous peoples had with their environment. Additionally, the ability to craft and use these specialized tools facilitated the development of complex fishing techniques and maritime navigation, further enhancing the tribe's ability to thrive in diverse and challenging environments. Beyond their practical applications in hunting and warfare, many of these weapons held significant cultural and ceremonial importance. Items like pipe tomahawks and medicine shields were often used in rituals and ceremonies that reinforced social bonds and spiritual beliefs within the tribe. The crafting of these weapons was a communal activity, often accompanied by songs, dances, and rituals that imbued the weapons with spiritual power and communal identity. For example, the Dakota tribe's shield-smoking ceremonies were pivotal events in the maturation of young warriors. These ceremonies involved smoking the rawhide of shields over fires, a process that was both a rite of passage and a spiritual practice. The smoke was believed to carry the warrior's prayers and intentions to the spirits, ensuring the protection and success of the shield bearer in battle. The ceremonial use of weapons among Native American tribes highlights the intricate relationship between warfare, spirituality, and community. These ceremonies served to prepare warriors mentally and spiritually for battle, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose within the tribe. The decorations and symbols on ceremonial weapons often reflected the tribe's mythology, cosmology, and values, making these items more than just tools of war. They were embodiments of the tribe's identity and heritage. This multifaceted approach to weaponry underscores the depth of indigenous cultures and their ability to integrate practical tools with profound spiritual meanings. The weaponry of Native American tribes from the Old West era remains a testament to their resilience, ingenuity, and deep connection to their environment. While firearms became dominant in warfare and hunting, the traditional weapons of indigenous peoples continued to hold cultural significance and practical utility. Today, these weapons are studied not only for their historical value but also for their craftsmanship and the insights they provide into the daily lives and survival strategies of Native American tribes. Modern reenactments, museums, and educational programs strive to preserve and honor the legacy of these traditional weapons, ensuring that the skills and knowledge of Native American craftsmanship are not forgotten. Additionally, contemporary indigenous communities continue to celebrate their heritage through the preservation of traditional weapon-making techniques and the incorporation of these practices into cultural ceremonies and storytelling. The preservation and study of Native American weaponry offer valuable lessons in sustainability, resourcefulness, and the harmonious relationship between humans and their environment. As modern society grapples with issues of environmental conservation and sustainable living, the traditional practices of indigenous peoples provide models of how to live in balance with nature. Furthermore, the resurgence of interest in traditional crafts and practices among younger generations of Native Americans fosters a sense of pride and continuity, ensuring that these ancient skills and traditions are carried forward into the future. The weaponry of Native American tribes in America's Wild West was far more diverse and sophisticated than the commonly portrayed image of settlers armed solely with firearms. From bows and arrows to war shields and specialized harpoons, indigenous peoples developed a wide array of tools that were essential for their survival, hunting, and warfare. These weapons were not only practical tools but also held deep cultural and spiritual significance, reflecting the rich heritage and resilience of Native American tribes. Understanding the complexity and diversity of Native American weaponry provides a more nuanced and respectful perspective of their history and contributions. It highlights the ingenuity and adaptability of indigenous peoples in the face of harsh environments and evolving challenges. As we continue to uncover and appreciate the legacy of these traditional weapons, we honor the rich cultural tapestry that Native American tribes have woven into the history of America's Wild West.